The first question that goes through my mind is, aren't you being a bit disloyal to the system by coming along here today and by associating yourself with this conference? Well, I'm not being disloyal to the system. The system accepts the principle that no innocent person should be convicted and should be punished for a crime of which they didn't commit. The system has in it inbuilt protections to try to get to that end. It has the criminal onus of proof beyond reasonable doubt, the obligation that rests on the prosecution to prove the case. In the theory of things, the accused doesn't have to prove their innocence, it's for the prosecution to prove that they're guilty. The system has built into it appeals, courts of criminal appeal, in which I sat for 12 years in New South Wales. It builds in protections that the court has its own obligations to look at the facts, even if in terms of the appearances the case has been conducted properly, no serious legal errors have happened on the way. If the facts don't stack up, the court should reach its own conclusion and give effect to it. And hovering in the background, like the gods in the sky, is the High Court of Australia, to which everyone theoretically can go and seek their application for special leave against a decision confirming a conviction, and the High Court judges can look at it, and as in the case of Mr. Mallard and in other cases, can reach a conclusion, give effect to it, and end the suffering of an innocent person. So I'm not here with disloyalty to the system, and I have to tell you, over the 35 years I was a judge, and the 25 years I was in appellate courts, I took my duties very seriously, and I believe other judges in the appellate system take their duties very seriously. I worked 7 days a week. I made no complaint about that. My job was very interesting, and objectively, in the way the system operates, it was important. And I knew that people were trusting me to try to reach the right decision in the case. And it is a very good thing we have in Australia that the judges are not corrupted. They are not corrupted by power, they are not corrupted by money. In the 35 years I was a judge, I never once got a phone call from the minister telling me how he would like the case decided. Never got a wink and a nudge at a club trying to put pressure on me. People steered clear of that. Occasionally, the media, news media, would give little hints, sometimes pretty brutal hints as to what the court should do, but you knew about that and you could ignore that. And I tried to do that. But I have to acknowledge, in the High Court, you would have one case and you could focus totally on it in the course of a day. In the Court of Criminal Appeal, I sometimes had 4 or 5 appeals against convictions. The appeal papers were that high on my desk, and I was very conscientious, but I may have missed things just out of the human capacity to work within time, the inability to find more hours in the day, the obligation to look at all the cases, to absorb them, the necessity to depend upon one of your colleagues to take the running in a particular case whilst you took the running in another case. This is human justice. It's one of the best systems of justice in the world, but it's an imperfect system because it's made up of jurors who are human beings, lawyers who are human beings, judges who are human beings. And whilst we're being critical of the system, we have to acknowledge we've got all these inbuilt protections, and I do believe that overwhelmingly the system gets things right. And that overwhelmingly the lawyers strive to be just, and the prosecution strives to follow the high traditions of a just presentation of the case. But sometimes mistakes happen. Then the question is what we do with it. But I do want to assure you that sitting there as I did twice a week or once a week when I was the President of the Court of Appeal of New South Wales, sitting in my crimson robes, because that's what we sit in crime, I did try conscientiously to reach lawful and just conclusions, and I believe the other judges did too. And that's a very important thing for us to keep in mind as we're addressing the issues of the Innocence Project. The second thing to say is it depends tremendously on the lawyers. The judges are working flat out to get the cases done, and they really have to depend very much on the skill and talent of the lawyers. What a wonderful man Mr. McCusker is, and what a wonderful thing it is that in Western Australia you had Malcolm McCusker barking at the heels of justice and causing an awful lot of trouble. That's the role of a lawyer, to cause a lot of trouble, not to be respectable, though Mr. McCusker's infinitely respectable. He's got the Office of Queen's Counsel, he's been honoured in the Order of Australia, but to be a nuisance and a troublemaker, it's very important. You have to do it within the rules, but you can still do very important work. And also Jamie Edelman of the University of Western Australia and of Oxford Law School. They were the two barristers for Mr. Mallard. And I didn't know that Malcolm McCusker had appeared for the Mickelberg brothers. That case came to the High Court before I was on the High Court, and I didn't know of his part in that case and in other cases. It shouldn't depend upon a few individuals as much as it does, and it's a good thing that this project is being launched so that it will encourage others to understand there's a very important role for the independent legal profession. It's important that the judges should be independent, but it's just as important that the lawyers should be independent and that they should be courageous. Courage in a lawyer is a very important phenomenon because it means you will fight the case with courage and integrity, and even when there are pressures being applied to wrap it up and conclude it, and even when the argument may not at first look a good argument, courage in a lawyer is very important. I think we should give a round of applause to Mr. McCusker, not only for his speech today, but for all the Malcolm McCuskers in our country, and may there be many in the Murdoch Law School and the Edith Cowan Law School and all the law schools of our country, so that we have brave, courageous and vigorous and vigilant lawyers to help the judges to come to right and lawful conclusions. A big round of applause to all.